Welcome back to Home Cooking Hacks, where we teach you how to do great things in the kitchen without a lot of gizmos and gadgets. So today what we are going to do is do tacos. So tacos can take, half an hour to an hour or so, and it depends on your preparation level. Now, what I usually do is I keep some taco seasoning around. So I make my taco seasoning. I don't want to buy the store stuff because it contains a lot of other weird preservatives and things. And I purchase whatever I can from natural food stores, things like that. In this case, I just have the store-bought stuff. I have some natural things, but I want to finish these up first. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to make your taco seasoning mix. And then you just leave this around. And then what you want to do is for every pound of ground beef or whatever your meat base happens to be, you're going to use 2.5 tablespoons of this mixture for that. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to start out with a mason jar. And we're going to use our spices. So taco seasoning is a mix of chili powder, paprika, cumin, which actually is what gives you your taco flavor, some salt, and some garlic powder. And so what we're going to do here is I'll go ahead and move my camera. Okay, great. So now I have my my container, my mason jar I'm going to use for this. This is just an 8-ounce mason jar. Hopefully this recipe works. I'm going to make enough here that's probably going to serve, 4 or so servings of tacos. So the first thing we want is 4 tablespoons of chili powder. So 4 tablespoons of chili powder corresponds to a 1/4 cup. So I'm going to use a 1/4 cup. And you can see I'm just rolling the spice jar, which will give me a nice smooth flow out. And then once I get up there these do not have to be exact measured to the nth degree. They just got to be pretty stinking close. Okay, so there is 1/4 of my chili powder. Okay, the next is I need the same amount of paprika. So again, we're just going to roll our paprika. I was doing it kind of right over the jar I'm pouring it into. If I spill a little bit, that's quite okay. Okay, here's my paprika. Next, we want 1 tablespoon of cumin. Yep, cumin is what gives you that taco flavor. When you smell tacos, it's cumin. So this is, by the way, a whole lot cheaper. You can see I actually just have a tiny bit left in the jar. I'm just going to dump that out, the rest into there. That's a little over a tablespoon, but 1 tablespoon is all you need there. Now I want 2 teaspoons of salt. Now if you really like salty food, you might do a little bit more. If you don't like salty food at all, do a little bit less. And now we want 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Okay. Now we're going to put this guy in. It looks like one of those little sand things. We want to make sure it's very consistent throughout. So we're just going to roll it around, shake it around. You can stir it around. Whatever it takes, you just want to get this thoroughly mixed up. You want it completely combined together. If you were just mixing this together for a single serving, then what you would do is, just put everything, right inside a little mixing bowl or something easier to stir. But in this case here, since I like doing a lot of prep cook stuff and I have a lot of experience as a prep cook, I can now take this jar, set it aside, and this will not go bad. It's perfectly fine to sit up your shelf whenever. And then whenever you want tacos, you just have your ground beef, whatever else, and then you just pour out into there. Okay, so the next step in making our tacos is we are going to mix together our meats. Now, the thing about tacos is you can kind of make with whatever. I know fish tacos have been coming around. I'm not brave enough to try that yet. I'm going to do just traditional tacos with ground beef. So I have a pound of ground beef that I got from the farmer's market down here. So I try and support the farmer's markets where I can. I also have my peppers from a farmer's market. Actually, I think everything I have except my shallot, I think, came from a regular store. Now, you can mix together any type of meat. So what this recipe is here is 1 pound. Basically what you want to do is put your meat in the pan, and then you want to top it with water, or put your seasoning on, then you want to top it off with water. So what we are going to do here is I'm going to use my ground beef. I'm going to open this up, put it in my pan, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up some onion and chop up some garlic. So for 1 pound, I'm going to use 1 clove of garlic, and I'm going to use about half of a shallot. And so we're going to boil down the water with the ground beef with 2.5 tablespoons of our taco seasoning that we made. And then when it's getting close to ready, I'm going to add in some peppers. Now it calls for, I think the general recipes that you might have, let me see what they actually call for, like half of a regular bell pepper. I don't usually use those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1 green and 1 yellow pepper is what I'm going to use. So what we want is your pound of meat. You want a clove of garlic, 1/4 of a regular cooking onion. I'm going to use two little mini peppers. Now you're going to put in the garlic and the onion as soon as you can. You're going to wait until it's getting close to the end for the peppers. With my ground beef, like I said, I got the ground beef from the farmer's market, some Amish gentlemen. So here we're just going to put the ground beef over there. So this should be good, probably pasture raised is my thought with Amish. Definitely the better preference, so we're going to have a lot better meat. If I were buying in the store, I'd go with a meat that's fattier. Of course, our whole Western culture kind of says, oh, fat's going to kill you. No, fat's not going to kill you. In fact, particularly good saturated animal fat is actually very healthy for you. And so I'm going to get as kind of as fatty as I really can, which the good news is that's usually the cheaper stuff. So now we're going to just cover this with about 2.5 tablespoons of our taco seasoning. So I'm just going to sprinkle it over like this, try and get about a good full coverage. And 2.5 is, I'm going to do about one approximate heaping teaspoon there for my half. Okay, so now we're done with our taco seasoning. Now what we're going to do is we're going to top this with water. Just going to use a water bottle here. And then the idea is you want to now boil this off. Now, so now I'm just going to turn this on. I don't want to turn it on full high because it's just going to boil over too much, and that's going to boil over water and hot grease down over my meats and stuff, and that's going to kind of cause a few problems, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to let it go a little bit slower, and then if it gets to the point where dinner time's coming up too quick, then what we're going to do at that case is then we will run into a situation where we'll just kind of crank up the heat, take the lid off, and just watch it. Now, as I said, the garlic and the onion can go in as soon as it's ready, and so I'm going to chop up the garlic and the onion first. Watch out for your fingers. I actually got my finger the other day. It's a lovely little cut there. I was too busy talking to someone while I was cutting stuff, and yeah, that kind of caused a little bloody mess. We're going to try not to do that today. We don't need to see blood on home cooking hacks, do we? All right. The wound is nice and healed up at this point, just in case you're curious. All right, so now my garlic is ready. That's pretty much all I do on the garlic, just get chunks about like that. And then on the onion or shallot, I usually use shallots. One of the reasons I use shallots is I'm a single guy, and as a single guy, I don't regularly use enough full onion. I might do a full onion if I'm doing like a chili or something, but the way I get things, I like to use the shallots for that. The other reason, though, is that shallots are a little bit more prebiotic than onion are. Like, onion is a pretty good prebiotic. And a prebiotic, you hear about prebiotics and probiotics. A prebiotic means that it is a food that encourages the health of good, healthy bacteria in your gut lining. And in reality, a good, healthy bacteria in your gut lining is an extremely good thing to have, because what ends up happening is it induces a lot of things, and a lot of even our digestion occurs as a symbiotic relationship with the bacteria inside our gut. Now, our modern world, with where a lot of the westerny stuff that we have, I'm going to take these guys here that aren't cutting well. Anything that doesn't seem to cut well, I'm going to take those guys out. But anyway, I was saying, as our Western world, where we're so focused on, you know, all these health and diet things, these health and diet products and all this kind of stuff is actually quite toxic to. It's actually quite toxic to our to the gut bacteria that's good and healthy for us. And that's one of the things that causes a lot of health problems, is that we don't have good, healthy intestinal flora. Diet colas totally kill that stuff. A lot of the excess sugars and processed foods, the emulsifiers, those things that are just not good for us, those actually cause some challenges. So, okay, so I'm just covering that back over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut my peppers. I'm just going to throw them onto a little plate or something. I'll go ahead and use my little plate over here. So what we're going to do, let's do this. So for our peppers, what we're going to do, and these are little bell peppers I got from the farmer's market the other day. So these guys here are really nice, full of flavor. You should always, if you have the availability, shop at the farmer's markets where you can. It causes a lot of things. The first is it really helps the local economy, helps the local farmers, and it gets, it reduces the amount of reliance on the big companies now. Now, here what you'll see is inside there's still some seeds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and run this over the water a little bit and just kind of stir those out. Just get all those seeds out. By using your farmers markets, now a lot of cities are starting to get more farmers markets. Find those out. You can actually just type in your city name and farmers market, and you will be able to find listings for farmers markets in your area. Now, I'm in State College here. There's actually farmers markets. I think every day except Sunday, if I remember correctly. So, I remember where the primary ones I go to and what times they are. There's fortunately one right close to where I pay rent, and there's another one that's just not too far from me. At least through most of the year. There are a few farmers markets that we have in a on a annual basis. So when it gets cold, of course, you don't get as much of the fresh fruits and vegetables, but you can buy soaps and things like that, or you can get you can still get some of the meats and things there, as the meat has been frozen. And I'd probably rather have frozen meat from a good Amish farm well before I'd have the meat from the big supermarket. And then of course you got to question the cost. Do you have the cost to eat it? And I think that this pound of ground beef I had cost me $5. I think I could probably get it for, I don't know, I don't buy much ground beef, maybe 3 or 4 or something at the local grocery store. So, but I also try and get the grass-fed when I can. And I'm pretty sure, in fact, this meat, I could just tell just by looking at it, it probably is grass-fed. So what we're going to talk about today is how to make a flour tortilla. Now, you can make these as the small soft shell for tacos, or a larger burrito wrap, or for a basic wrap. This is just a fabulous recipe. I've been working on this for quite a while. It's very simple. We simply need some basic flour. We need some salt. We need some baking powder, coconut oil, and a little bit of water, which I have over there. I'll get some later. So our basic recipe for a single full-size wrap, you want to use half a cup of flour, and then you want to use about an 1/8 a teaspoon of salt, an 1/8 a teaspoon of baking powder, not soda, baking powder, and then you want to use about a heaping teaspoon of coconut oil. Mix that together with your hands, and then you're going to add 3 tablespoons of water. Stir that up. Now, for making more, I'm going to do what you might have more like a family size or whatever. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to, actually I think I'm going to, double the recipe, quadruple the recipe. So in my quadrupling recipe, I think I might actually need a bigger container here. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it in my little container. I'm going to do this one in my big pot instead. So I was going to do it in my little bowl here, which is nice and handy, but I'm not going to have the room for that. So to double this recipe, what we're going to do is we're going to use, of course, 2 cups of flour. We're going to use half a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, and we're actually going to do, let's see, I think we're going to do 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. Mix that together, and then I'll have to calculate the amount of water we are going to use for this particular recipe. Okay, so make sure that you start with having some clean hands because you are going to be playing in your food. So the first step is we're going to take our flour. I'm going to move my mouse out of the way there. Okay. We're going to start with 2 cups of flour. Now this is going to make, this will make 8 soft shell tacos, or this is going to make, or it's going to make like 4 full-size burrito wraps. That should be sufficient. I might even be able to get 9 or 10 wraps out of taco shells out of this. Depends on the size. You don't want to put your flour away yet. We're going to sprinkle the counter and use our rolling pin here. All right, so I want half a teaspoon, excuse me, of salt. So this is a quarter teaspoon. So I'm just going to do 2 of those of salt. I'm going to do 2 of these of baking powder. Okay. I am done with the salt and the baking powder, so you can throw those up in your cabinet once you're done with those to get some things out of your way. Now I'm just going to move these guys around. Like I said, we're going to play in this eventually. May as well play in this now, right? Okay. Just want to get that stirred around. Now I want about 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. You can use butter for this. I just found that I use coconut oil because I usually have a better availability of having coconut oil than I do having butter around. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to play in our food again. Stir this guy around. Okay, so for the single recipe I use 3 tablespoons of water, so I want 3 times 4, which was 4 tablespoons. 4 tablespoons would be 3/4 of a cup, so that's how much water we're shooting for. So I managed to find a 1/4 cup, so we're just going to do 3 1/4s, give me 3/4. Fractions, gotta love them. Now when I do a single one of these and I'm just doing my smaller quantity, then I will actually just stir this around with my butter knife first, but I don't want to touch a butter knife in here because this is a nonstick pot. So I'm just going to swirl it with a single finger is what I'm doing right now, just to get it ready to go. Once it's a little bit more doughy like that, then I can get my whole hand in the mix. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to wipe up and down the side of the bowls just to get all the flour off. It does feel like, when you start doubling and quadrupling the recipes, it'll start to feel like it's a little doughy, it's a little too gooey. So I'm going to go ahead and just top in. It's better if you have a little bit more water than a little bit less, because it's easier to readjust. I'm just going to add a little bit more flour, stir this around a little bit. And then what it should do is it should stop sticking to myself. Okay, so I have this rolled out. I kind of rolled it out into a log. Like, so I'm going to try and get between 8 and 10 out of this. So usually what I'll do here is I'm just going to start in the middle, cut 1 in half. Yeah, I could potentially cut the counter if I'm not careful, but that's quite all right. I don't care. Let's see. We'll do half there. And let's just go for 8. I think what we'll do is we'll go for 8. So each one of these will also now get cut in half. So now I'm going to get 8 little balls here. I'm going to roll those separately. And then we're going to do the same for this part here. Cut it in half, and then cut each one of these in half again. That old concept in biology of binary fission. There we go. So now what we're going to do is I bought a specific pan just to do wraps. And that is this size here, which is like just a 12-inch pan. So I'm going to put this back on the stove. And now what we're going to do is just do one of these at a time. So I'm just going to make a big mess all over my countertop. And then do this, roll it again. And now we roll it out, going 90-degree angles from each other until we get a nice smooth roll on our wrap. So these guys here would be the smaller taco shells we're going to do. Set those in the pan, turn that on probably about medium-high, and then flip them when they need to be flipped. Got to turn on the right oven though. So now with the first one being done, now what we're going to do is I'm just going to do the rest of them and then just set them aside. You can see that I roll them faster than they will be cooked. That's just okay. They'll be just fine while they're sitting there ready to be cooked. That one's not quite circle, but oh well, I'll deal with it. Of course, it helps if they're more spherical when you start. Always gives you a better circle. So you can slightly overlap them, just don't roll them completely on top of each other. We're going to do this one a little bit better of a circle. Now once I've floured these up a lot, then they will not wrap together quite as nicely, but that's okay. Okay, so you'll see what this guy looks like. It's not quite ready to go. It will be when it's easy to wrap, and then you can actually flip them like that if you want to. This one's not quite ready yet, so leave that go a little bit longer. I'm just going to keep rolling. Okay, so now that's good, so we can flip it like that. It's maybe a little bit browner. So you just repeat that process for all of them, and then you'll have a pile of good tortillas near the end. Okay, so we are closing in on the final stages of the tacos here. So you can see it's boiling down quite a bit. We've added quite a bit of water. Of course, we've already added the garlic and the onions. We've added the taco seasoning. At this point in time, I might try the tacos, just a quick mix now, and just to have a taste and see if it's about ready, or if it's if I need more seasoning or not. Because the seasoning itself is that's really the part that you want in the tacos to be right, is you want the seasoning to be good. So I'll take a chunk of it here, set it there to be kind of cool down a little bit. Okay, so that's good, but I think it needs more seasoning. So all we're going to do now is just sprinkle some more seasoning in there. That will help tremendously. Now, there is probably still some seasoning left in the bottom. There's probably still a little bit of water. Maybe a lot of what's left there is grease. That's okay. And also at this stage, we're going to take the peppers that we had chopped up, and we're going to go ahead and throw the peppers in there as well. So So this is kind of that following stages where it's about the point in time now we want to simmer things down. Of course, with the tacos, the thing we're not going to cover here on the video, you can figure this part out yourself. You know, get your toppings figured out. Do you want your lettuce? Do you want your cheese? You know, tomatoes, whatever you want as your toppings, you go ahead and do that. So this is just about perfect, in fact. So I'm actually going to turn the heat all the way off at this point. Okay, so now that meat there was really good. So that's about what I want. So at this point in time, our tacos are done. You just grab your shell, stuff it full of your meat, put in your toppings, and that is tacos. So completely homemade from scratch with no artificial ingredients anywhere, depending on what you call sugar and flour, well, flour, I guess. So if you do like what we're doing here at Home Cooking Hacks, then be sure to come back by again. Check out the website, homeCookingHacks.com, for recipes and to learn how you can support the channel. And with that, thanks for watching.